So in this video I want to talk about things you shouldn't do and shouldn't forget at your thesis defense if you want to be successful. There will be more obvious and less obvious things, so let's start with the most obvious thing. Don't forget to practice. And here what I mean are several things. The first one, ideally you want to have a mock viva or mock defense. Ideally with your supervisors, but perhaps with your colleagues, friends, family, anyone. The point is that you want to practice being in that environment, in that situation, in that role of a person being asked questions about your study. It's never going to be exactly the same, it's never going to be exactly the same situation or levels of stress, but it will give you that practice of answering on the spot, of how to handle things that you don't know how to answer, and generally rehearsing different scenarios. So ideally a mock viva or a mock thesis defense, but also another thing is presenting your work. So depending on which country you're studying, what university you're studying in, you may, and it's quite likely I think that you are asked to present at your defense. So quite often the whole event starts with your short presentation, 5 or 15 minutes long. So you do want to practice that presentation. I'm sure you know that. I'm sure you may have delivered some other presentations as a student, but here I won't go into much detail of how to prepare that presentation or how to develop it, design it, or how to practice it, but do let me know if you want me, do let me know in the comments if you want me to talk more about presentations. One thing I do want to share with you here is my favorite technique. So the thing I do every time if I practice presentations, and this involves using a timer on my phone, or my watch or whatever, on my computer. If you know you have 15 minutes, for example, or 10 minutes for your presentation, I usually break down the presentation to different sections. So of course you have some kind of rationale, maybe a brief overview, then methods, findings. So you have to decide which section will take what amount of time. So for example, 3 minutes for the background, 4 minutes for the findings, etc., etc. So it's crucial to do that and break the whole presentation down into bits and then just measure the time. So again, using timer, just so you know if you can manage it, if you're successful at managing these different bits of presentation and therefore managing the whole presentation, manage to finish it on time. So I use that timer, and every time I don't manage, I fail, I just start over, use the timer again, start presenting again, start over. So until I get it perfectly every time. And this really gives a lot of confidence. This is the main result. Of course, the main result is you being effective at presenting, but also psychologically it gives me plenty of confidence. I feel more relaxed when I get there. I feel more relaxed because I know I managed so many times. I know at least I don't have to worry about this part, and it just helps me relax. So that's my main advice regarding preparing for your presentations. But regarding being relaxed, stick around till the end of this video, because the last advice that I give is also about tricking your body into feeling relaxed, basically, and that's a very interesting thing that I learned. So stick around until the end of this video. And the second point, don't forget that you own this work, ideally, I hope that you've done your thesis, you've done your research yourself, so you didn't have somebody else do the whole work for you. If you have done at least the majority of your work, you are fairly familiar with this research. You're familiar with this research, you know why you did it, you know all about the background, the necessary literature, previous studies, you know why you chose certain methods, you know about your findings, so you know that by heart. You've been talking about that so many times, you've been writing about it, you've been talking about that with your supervisors, maybe you present it somewhere. So the point here is that you know it because you own it. And why am I saying this? I know I just said practice, and yes, you do have to practice, but also what I often tell my students is that you don't want to take it to the extreme and overthink it and stress too much, because there's only so much you can do in these final hours or days, preparing for your defense. If, as I said, you've been working on that for the last couple of years, you should be able to answer most of the questions, at least the core questions about the most important things. And As I will say in this video, also you don't have to know all the answers. But again, as I said, if you've done the work yourself, remember that they won't really surprise you that much, because you know the answers to at least the core questions and the core concepts related to your study. Mr. Krukov, can you tell us why you chose grounded theory as your methodology? Oh, well, yes, there is a controversy and a lively ongoing debate among scholars about the nature of the work to literalize the signifiers of the first encounter, and I don't know what I'm saying. And advice number 3 is don't stress about not knowing answers to every question. This is very important. As I just said, you should be able to answer at least the most important questions, the more general questions about your study. So I just said you shouldn't worry too much about this. But at the same time, if you do get asked a question that you don't know the answer to, it's perfectly fine to say that. It's perfectly fine to say, I don't know. I don't know the answer to this, or I haven't thought about that. What you may also do is kind of speculate or theorize about things. So you may, so that would be an additional advantage, because it would show your thought process and your logical thinking and your creative thinking. So sometimes, only if relevant, because it depends on the situation, you may of course say, I don't know, but, for example, given the nature of this phenomenon, or given what we know, what I have read in the literature about this, I think it's fair to assume that whatever is the case, whatever was the question. So you may do that as well. So just don't worry about not knowing. Don't pretend that you know. That's probably the worst thing that you can do. Either say, I don't know, I haven't read about that, I'm not aware of that. And I've done that as well during my defense. When I was asked a difficult question about theories that I just didn't know about, because I had a very demanding examiner, I just said I never read about this. I may just have a look into that, but I haven't read about this, so I just honestly don't know the answer. This is similar to another advice: don't treat your examiners as your enemies. This is all very related, but just remember that they're not your enemies. They are not there to fail you. They are not there to fail you. They want to help you. They want you to succeed, believe it or not, but they do. So they know it will be flawed. They know it won't be perfect. Just don't treat them as they are there to fail you. They are your enemies. If you need more time, tell them that you need more time. If you need a drink of water, tell them you need a drink of water. You have to think about that, or you need more time to think about the answer. As I said, don't be afraid to tell them you don't know. So just treat them as somebody who's not there to fail you. I know it may sound obvious, but it's not. And often under all that stress, we kind of feel like we are here and they are there and they want to fail us. So we're all stressed about even giving a single wrong answer, or a single stutter, or not answering quickly enough. None of this is true. So take all the time you need. Tell them that you're stressed. If you're stressed, again, this is normal. And I remember I said that as well, that I just feel stressed. So that's okay. Treat them as normal human beings. And this again leads us to something very similar and very related. Don't be afraid not to understand or misunderstand their questions. If you didn't understand the question, tell them, I don't understand. Can you please rephrase, or can you repeat, or what exactly do you mean? I don't understand. So again, it's better, it's kind of like what I said before about not knowing all the answers, except that here you may just simply misunderstand what they want from you. Again, tell them to repeat. Now, this is very important. Don't forget to use notes, to make notes. And I don't mean just notes during your conversations, which can be also something useful probably if they are making important points, because it's a back and forth exchange. It's not something, it's not an event where, most of the times at least, where you're just being questioned. Quite often it's an exchange of opinions. So you may make notes, but that's not what I mean. Make notes in your thesis. Use sticky notes. You are allowed to do that. So firstly, you are allowed to bring your thesis with you and then you are allowed to use, for example, sticky notes. And that's what I did. All important things, everything that I thought I could be asked about, I used sticky notes in my thesis. So I brought my thesis with all these colorful notes that, for example, would direct me quickly to my discussion of philosophy, some important concepts in the literature, some key findings or things like that. So generally the most important things, or what I felt were the most important things, and the things that I thought I could be asked about and perhaps I would need some support. You are allowed and you are expected to use your thesis, to look into your thesis. Again, it's not a sign of not being prepared. You don't have to know it by heart. So by all means, have your thesis with you, and like I said, use notes, use sticky notes to help you find things in that thesis as you're being asked about these things. And now the final one, do not ignore the power of auto-suggestion. And there are different things here that I want to discuss. I'm really excited to share this with you because I know this one is not that well known, and I remember how I learned it from a presentation. I'll try to link to that presentation. It was a TED talk, I think, in the description. So I'll link to the description. One of these things was power posing. Power posing, very interesting thing. So as you know, the way we feel influences our pose, our posture, how we stand. If you're, you have some closed gestures when you're insecure or shy, lots of things like that. That's the whole topic of body language. I'm sure at least you've heard a little bit about it. So we all know that how we feel will influence how we stand. However, what is very interesting is that we don't necessarily know that how we stand influences or may influence how we feel. So the other way around. And this is what power posing is about. If you stand like this, chest out, breathe in, you're standing straight, it basically tricks your body into being confident. You have a better airflow as you're breathing, so you're feeling relaxed, you have lots of air. And importantly, I'm not saying do that during the defense. What I did, I would do this prior to such events, prior to important presentations. I remember I was stressed, I was really extremely stressed, for example, before teaching, my first teaching. What I would do, I would go to bathroom, usually to bathroom, and do that in that bathroom, so nobody has to, see me and think about what the hell I'm doing. I would just stand there like that, and like I said, breathe in, breathe out, and just stand straight, because when you're nervous, you kind of start doing that, and this, like I said, there is a physiological explanation for that. It's kind of restricting the airflow, so it has to do with all these things. But the point is, like I said, if you do the opposite, you basically trick your body into feeling confident. It's not just about the air, it's about how you stand, and it just works. I'm not a specialist, but it does work. Believe me, it does work. And I did that when I learned about this. I did that repeatedly prior to important things, including, of course, the thesis defense. So that's one of the things about auto-suggestion. The other thing, this sounds even more extreme, I guess, and silly. Visualizing success. I won't cover it in full here, but generally it's about imagining yourself, imagining that situation prior, before obviously the whole event. Imagining this event, imagining mainly your emotions, how you succeed. Imagine you being successful at that event, not imagining you failing, as we kind of often are tempted to do, because we're nervous and we're thinking, oh my god, what if I do that? That's the opposite. You don't want to do that. You want to imagine yourself being successful. You want to imagine yourself giving a great presentation, people praising you and telling you that it's one of the best defenses they attended. And again, sounds silly, but it actually works. And here is the video that I want you to watch, because in that video I explain more about how it works and why it works. But please do not ignore it, because it does work.